If you ever backtested more than one trading strategy, you've probably run into this problem. You have multiple results in front of you, like multiple equity curves, multiple drawdown plots, multiple performance reports, and so on. And every one of them looks good, in a different way. One strategy makes a lot of money, but the drawdowns are brutal. Another one looks smooth and stable, but barely grows the account. And a third one has an amazing Sharpe ratio, but very few trades. And now you're stuck with a simple question that turns out to be surprisingly hard to answer. Which strategy is actually better? Most people solve this the wrong way. They pick only one metric, like highest profit or lowest drawdown, or the best Sharpe or the highest win rate. And they optimize everything around that single number. But the problem is, trading doesn't work like that. Because the strategy with the highest profit is often the one that almost blew your account. And the strategy with the smoothest curve is often the one that doesn't really move your equity at all. Now, in a previous video I showed you a structured way to deal with this problem using a method called Topsys. And in that video I explained how you can rank strategies by comparing multiple metrics at the same time instead of just one. And while that approach is a big step up from cherry-picking single numbers, it still isn't good enough for real trading decisions. Because ranking strategies against each other is not the same as answering the question we actually care about. Is this strategy good enough to trade with real money? Now in this video I want to show you the scoring system I actually use today. A system that doesn't just rank strategies relative to each other, but evaluates them against absolute and non-negotiable standards. A system that can say this strategy is acceptable, or this one is excellent. And more importantly, this one should never be traded, no matter how good it looks on one metric. And the best part is that you don't need advanced math or academic theory to understand it. If you understand basic trading concepts like drawdown, Sharpe and expectancy, you already understand most of this system. So let's take a step back and look at the core problem more carefully. When we compare trading strategies, we're almost never dealing with a single objective. We care about how much money the strategy makes, how much risk it takes, how deep the drawdowns are, how consistent the returns look, and whether the results are statistically meaningful. And these things often conflict with each other. A strategy can have high returns because it takes huge risks, but another one can be very safe because it avoids opportunities. So the real problem isn't that we don't have enough metrics, the real problem is that we have too many and that they don't agree. And this is why focusing on a single metric almost always leads to bad decisions. But even when you move beyond a single metric and start using a structured ranking method, another issue appears. Because ranking systems answer a different question that most traders think they do. They think they answer the question which strategy is better relative to each other, but what we actually want to know is this strategy good enough to trade at all? And those are not the same question. Now let me give you a simple example. Imagine you test 5 strategies and all of them are bad, but one of them loses less money than the others. A ranking system will still call that one the best, but that doesn't mean it's tradable. It just means it is the least terrible option in the bad group. And this is where relative ranking quietly becomes dangerous. Because a trading strategy can rank highly even if it violates basic risk principles. It can rank highly because even the drawdown is unacceptable, but it can also rank highly even if the sample size is too small to trust. In other words, ranking does not equal qualification. Another problem is that rankings are unstable. If you add or remove strategies from your test set, the rankings can change, even if the strategy itself hasn't changed. And that means that the score you get today might not mean the same thing tomorrow. For research and experimentation, this is annoying. And for real money decisions, this is a serious problem. What I wanted instead was something much simpler and much stricter. I wanted a system that could look at a single strategy in isolation and answer 3 very basic questions. Is this strategy acceptable at all? And how good is it in absolute terms? And where is its real weakness? And that's the mindset shift that led to the scoring system I'm going to show you next. Instead of asking which strategy is better than the others, I started asking a different question. Is this strategy good enough on its own? Now that may sound like a small difference, but this changes everything, because now we're no longer comparing strategies against each other, but we're comparing each strategy against fixed absolute standards. I also like to think of this as making a trading strategy taking off an exam. If it takes this test and it scores 80%, then that score means something by itself. And it doesn't matter whether all the other participants of the exam, so the strategies, failed or all others scored higher. At 80% it means that it meets a defined standard. And after that I can compare that to ranking strategies from best to worst. And I can compare all these to an absolute score. And this score answers if this strategy is acceptable, if it is good or is it excellent, or should it be rejected entirely. Now, to do that, you need to define what acceptable and excellent actually means. And that is where the fixed anchors come in. Instead of letting the data decide what good looks like, we decide it up front. And for each metric, we define a lower bound, what is unacceptable, and an upper bound, what we consider excellent. Everything in between is just a smooth transition from bad to good. And this means that a strategy is no longer judged by how it compares to other strategies. It's judged by how it compares to your expectations and risk standards. And once you do that, something important happens. Scores become stable over time and then can be comparable against different test runs. And they can be meaningful on their own. A score of 70 always means the same thing, and a score of 85 also always means the same thing. And it doesn't depend on what else happens in the dataset. Now, this shift from ranking to scoring is the foundation for the entire system, and everything else is built on this idea. But first, let's look at how fixed anchors actually work with real numbers, because behind the scenes this system is doing quite a bit of math. Now, the key idea is simple. Every metric gets mapped onto a 1 to 100 score using predefined anchors. Let's start with a metric where lower is better, maximum drawdown. Let's assume that we define 50% drawdown as unacceptable, but 5% drawdown is excellent. Now, those are our anchors. Now we can take an example where strategy has 20% drawdown, and that value sits somewhere between 5 and 50%. And now the question becomes, how close is 20% to excellent, and how far is it from unacceptable? Now, if you map that onto a 0 to 100 scale, then a 20% drawdown ends up scoring somewhere around 70 out of 100. It's not perfect, but it's clearly acceptable. Now compare that to a strategy with a 45% drawdown. That's much closer to the unacceptable end, and its score might end up closer to 10 or 15 out of 100. Now you notice that nothing subjective is happening here. The system is just measuring where the value sits between two fixed reference points, and then we can calculate the difference. We can also take a look at a metric where higher is better, like the Sharpe ratio. And suppose we define a Sharpe of 0 is unacceptable and a Sharpe of 3 is excellent. Now we can imagine a strategy with a Sharpe of 1.5, and that's right in the middle. So it gets a score of about 50 out of 100. A Sharpe of 2.4 would score much higher, and a Sharpe of 0.3 would score very low. Again, no comparisons to other strategies, and there's no dependence on the dataset. Each metric is judged on its own scale against absolute standards. And once you do this for every metric, like a profit factor, expectancy, win rate, drawdown and so on, then all of them end up speaking the same language. They all become scores from 0 to 100, where higher means always better. And that's what makes everything that follows possible, because we're now no longer combining apples and oranges, but we're combining comparable scores. And once everything is on the same scale, we can start structuring and combining them in a meaningful way. Now that every metric is converted into a 0 to 100 score, the next step is to combine them. And this part is very important because not all metrics describe the same thing. A Sharpe ratio and a win rate are both useful, but they measure completely different aspects of a strategy. So instead of throwing all metrics into one big average, the system is built in layers. And let me directly show you what this means with an example. Take risk-adjusted returns. In this system, risk-adjusted returns are described by three metrics: the Sharpe ratio, Shortino and Kalmar ratio. And each of those has already been converted into a 0 to 100 score using fixed anchors. Now suppose a strategy gets a Sharpe score of 70, Shortino of 80 and a Kalmar score of 60. These three scores are then combined into what I call a risk-adjusted returns component score. But not all three metrics are treated as equally important. For example, a Sharpe might get a 40% weight, Shortino 35 and Kalmar 25. So the calculation looks roughly like this: 70 times 0.4 plus 80 times 0.35 plus 60 times 0.25. And that gives a component score of around 71. And that single number now represents how good the strategy's risk-adjusted returns are, in a balanced way. And the same thing can happen for all categories as well. Profitability combines things like profit factor, expectancy and CAGR, and consistency can be represented by a combination of win rate and SQN. Risk management focuses on drawdown, and the sample size looks at how many trades the strategy actually took. Each group produces its own component score, again from 0 to 100. And now you can see that instead of juggling 10 or 15 raw metrics, we are working with small sets of meaningful performance dimensions. And this does two very useful things. First, it makes the system interpretable. If a strategy scores poorly overall, you can immediately see where the problem is. It is a risk or profitability or consistency, or it might be insufficient data. And second, it prevents one metric from hijacking the entire results. A strategy with great profitability but terrible risk management cannot hide behind one impressive number. Each dimension has to stand on its own. Now, once we have the component score, we are almost done. The final step is to decide how important each component is relative to the others. And that's where weighting comes in. Just like with the Topsys method, weighting has a very important function, because you can decide with weighting what matters more and what matters less. And these weightings are purely individual, because not every trader values the same things. Some traders care most about maximizing returns, others care more about capital preservation, others want smooth equity curves, and others are willing to accept volatility. There's no single correct answer here. And that's actually a good thing, because in this system, weighting is not about optimization or curve fitting, but it's about making your priorities explicit. For example, you might decide that risk-adjusted returns are the most important factor. Profitability comes next, consistency matters but slightly less, and risk management and sample size still matter but are supporting factors. And in practice this might look like this. Risk-adjusted returns get 35% weighings, profitability 25%, consistency 20%, risk management 15%, and sample size 5%. And these percentages simply describe how much each component contributes to the final score. And let's also see it with a simple example. Suppose a strategy has these component scores. The returns have 70, profitability 80, consistency 60, risk management 65, and sample size 90. We now multiply each score by its weight. And after that, add all those together and you will get a final score of 71. And that number now reflects your priorities, applied consistently. If another trader with different priorities use different weights, they might get a different score. And that's not a bug, but that's exactly the point. The system isn't trying to tell you what to value, but it's forcing you how to be honest about what you already value, and then apply that logic consistently over all strategies. One important thing to understand is that weighting does not allow everything to be compensated. Because before any weighting happens, the strategy must pass strict deal breaker rules. If the drawdown is unacceptable, it doesn't matter how profitable the strategy is, or if the sample size is too small, and it doesn't matter how smooth the equity curve looks. Weighting is only applied after a strategy has proven its most basic trading standards. And that brings us to the most important safeguard in the entire system. Up to this point, everything we discussed has been around scoring, but there's something even more important than scoring well, and that's not being untradeable. In real trading, there are certain conditions that simply cannot be ignored. No amount of profitability can compensate for a trading strategy that puts your account at serious risk, and that's why this system includes deal breakers. Deal breakers are actually hard rules. If a strategy violates any of them, it's immediately rejected. There's no score, no ranking, and no debate. And let's give you a few examples. For example, the sample size. If a strategy only has a handful of trades, you don't have a strategy, you have coincidence. So if the total of numbers is trades below a minimum threshold, then the strategy is rejected. Another one can be profit factor. If the strategy is losing money overall, it doesn't matter how smooth the equity curve looks. A profit factor below 1 means that you are on average losing, and that's a hard stop. Now let me give you a third and final example. For example, the maximum drawdown. At some point, drawdown becomes unacceptable. If the strategy experiences a drawdown that exceeds your risk limits, it's rejected, even if it made a lot of money afterward. This is critical because in real life you don't get to experience the final equity curve first, but you experience the drawdowns while they're happening. And these deal breakers turn the system into something very important. It is no longer fully compensating bad performance indicators. A strategy cannot buy its way out of extreme risks with high returns. And this is a major difference compared to many ranking-based systems. And it reflects how real trading decisions are actually made. Before we ask how good a strategy is, we must first ask if it is acceptable at all. Only strategies that pass these basic safety checks are allowed to receive a score. And once a strategy passes, we can finally interpret its scores with confidence. Which brings us to the final piece of the system. After the deal breakers, the weightings and the category scores, we end up with a single number, a score between 0 and 100. And the most important thing to understand about this score is this: it has absolute meaning. A score of 80 is not good compared to other strategies, but it's simply good, period. It means that the strategy meets your standards across risk, profitability, consistency and robustness. A score of 60 means that the strategy is acceptable, but has clear weaknesses you should be aware of. A score of 40 means that the strategy is marginal and probably not worth trading with real capital. And a score of 0 means that the strategy failed based on a safety check and should not be traded at all. Now on top of this numeric score, we can also add one more layer, grading. Now this is not a separate calculation, but it's simply a way of translating the number into something that's easier to act on. For example, scores above 85 might be graded A+, scores in the high 70s and low 80s might be A or A-, scores in the 60s might fall into the B range, scores lower drop into C or D, and anything rejected by a deal breaker is marked clearly as rejected or failed. Each grade also comes with a short label and recommendation. So instead of just seeing a number, you immediately can see something like if the strategy is excellent and can be traded with confidence, or that we know that the strategy is average and we should proceed with caution. Now you have to be aware that this grading layer does not replace judgment, but it simply makes the system easier to use consistently, especially when you're evaluating many trading strategies at once. The important part is that the grades are derived from the score, and the score itself is built on fixed rules and absolute standards. So when a strategy gets an A today, it means the same thing next month and the month after that. And that stability is exactly what we want when real money is involved. So let's zoom out one last time. This scoring system is not about finding the perfect strategy, because that strategy simply doesn't exist. But what this system does is something much more valuable. It helps you to avoid bad decisions. It forces you to look at more than one specific metric and define what acceptable actually means. It rejects strategies that violate basic risk principles and evaluate the rest in a consistent, repeatable way. And instead of being impressed by one flashy number, you now have a structured way to judge the overall quality of a strategy. And because the score is absolute, you can use it in many practical ways. For example, you can now track how a strategy evolves over time, or compare new ideas against existing ones. You can filter out weak strategies before wasting time on them, which is actually my favorite, and focus your attention on systems that actually meet your standards. And most importantly, this system reflects how real trading decisions are made. You don't trade rankings, you trade strategies that are good enough, robust enough and safe enough. If you watched my earlier video about TOPSIS, then you can think of this as the next step. TOPSIS was a useful way to think about multi-criteria comparison, but for real trading I needed something stricter, more stable and more aligned with risk management. And that's why this system used fixed anchors, hierarchical scoring and hard deal breakers. But you have to be aware that it doesn't predict the future, because nothing does, but it gives you a defensible framework for deciding which strategies even deserve a chance. And that alone already puts you ahead of most strategy comparisons you see online. Now if you found this useful, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And in the next videos I will show you how the scoring system is implemented in code, how the anchors and weights are chosen, and how you can adapt it to your own trading style. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!